Okay, everyone, welcome back here, and let's get started in our topic today, which is the murder of a UK PM. And boy, okay. So yeah, as you know, where to go here? I'll get to that preempting critics pretty soon. Get to the rant and everything. Oh, where'd it go? Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So this Tory turned reform firebrand. This is just disaster here. She's a Catholic hardliner, and she got murdered in her home in Dartmoor. She was found with serious injuries, and the state cops, they claim to be launching an investigation. So they arrest some guy, and then they cut him loose. So just another day, another reminder: the system you pay for, if you're in the UK, can't even protect one loudmouth granny. Well, what's the play here anyway? All right, let's take a look.
Police have said that they've arrested a 26-year-old white man in connection with the murder of the former government minister Anne Widdecombe. Devon and Cornwall police said Ms Widdecombe was found at her home on Dartmoor yesterday morning with serious injuries. Anne Widdecombe was 78 and a major figure in the Conservative governments of the 1990s. She joined Reform UK in 2023. Sir Keir Starmer said the murder investigation was really shocking news.
At first, if you looked on Twitter, they denied that this was a terrorist attack, but people were suspicious that it was a terrorist attack because the guy drove like 300 miles or something to go kill this woman. And now they return around and say, "Oh no, it's a terrorist attack. It's a communist terrorist."
And he praised Ms Widdecombe as a distinguished politician. The Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, said she was stunned and that her heart was breaking for her family. Our first report tonight is by Helena Wilkinson.
Okay, so, man, boy, but where to even start with this? But the thing is, this story is now like overshadowed already because we have in the news the whole China election fraud thing, and then they have that Rubio speech about communism. There was something else too. So like three big stories in a row that can overshadow this, but this was a big story for a little bit. And sorry, it's a little late reporting on this, but it is what it is. So maybe next week we can cover some of those other stories. Especially like the Chinese, but we'll get into that. I don't want to get into it. Let's listen.
It was in her house in Dartmoor where Anne Widdecombe was found dead yesterday. In a shocking development this afternoon, police said they were now treating her death as murder.
Murder. They didn't say terrorist attack at first. They changed the terrorist attack later. But notice how quick they were to say it was just murder, and they denounced the terrorist attack. They were so quick to do this. Talk about Pete Clown World. Now they're saying they turn around and it's a terrorist attack. We'll take a look. Let's listen some more.
We can confirm that a 26-year-old man was arrested at an address in Newton Abbot this afternoon.
And who was this man now? He was a terrorist, a communist terrorist, who drove 300 miles to kill this woman.
On suspicion of the murder of Anne Widdecombe. The suspect, who is a white British national, remains in police custody whilst inquiries continue.
Yeah, they're so quick.
Officers were called to Miss Widdecombe's home at Haytor by the ambulance service around 11:40 a.m. on Thursday the 9th of July. Sadly, 78-year-old Miss Widdecombe was located deceased within the property. She has sustained serious injuries.
This evening, the Prime Minister...
Former Prime Minister. Didn't he resign? Yeah. So it's kind of ironic here, like this Pete Clown World thing going on here. It's like you vote for strong on crime conservatives or reform populists promising borders and justice. But what do? They tax you again, like all statists, into oblivion. Then they disarm everybody, law-abiding citizens, and they build a welfare immigration magnet machine that distrains everything and everybody. And then some dirtbag communist terrorist just kicks down in the door and kills this woman, 70-year-old woman. And the police, of course, show up after the fact with the vans and the tape. Well, if she had some kind of mace or something, she could have protected herself. No political motive. And remember, they said it was no political motive, but there is. It was the terrorist motive.
Gave his reaction to a murder inquiry being launched into.
Now, see, people are going to compare his reaction to the reaction to like the some of the stuff that's been going on recently, like what's his name, Henry Hawk? Yeah, that 19-year-old college student.
To her death.
Well, this is really shocking news. And my thoughts, I think all of our thoughts, will be with the family and friends of Anne Widdecombe at this awful time for them. Anne was a distinguished politician over many, many...
Now, did he say this speech about Henry Hawk when he was stabbed to death? Was there a speech like this at first? He sure did wait a long time to give that speech.
Years with many achievements. And it's a huge, huge loss.
At a defence-related visit in Portsmouth earlier, the Conservative leader gave her reaction.
I'm stunned. To be honest, I don't really have the words for what has.
Yeah, I've got some words. Yeah. So yeah, it's like the police show up after the fact with vans and tape. So it's great. Just some random state-protected failure. Widdecombe spends decades, pushing state power for her vision of order, lock them up, death penalty, control the borders through parliament. What's the result? Dead in her bungalow while the monopoly protectors fumble. Right, that's what we have here. This isn't a tragedy. This is predictable. The state doesn't solve aggression. It monopolizes it and under-delivers. So again, big win for the state, huh? All right, let's keep listening.
We've discovered has happened. Anne Widdecombe was 78 years old. She was a fun and very feisty person, but she was an elderly person. I don't understand how someone could do something like this. It's a nasty...
I can, especially if he's a terrorist. He sees this communist terrorist sees Widdecombe as the enemy. What if it's state-sponsored terror? The state's been involved with that grooming gang report.
Horrific attack.
Neighbours have also been reacting to the news.
I'm devastated, I'm shocked, and I just can't believe it. In this lovely setting where we live, it's so peaceful, and
Well, the guy drove 300 miles. Yeah, why not?
I'm just absolutely devastated.
Outside Anne Widdecombe's home this evening.
The state totally decapitates its own citizens. It disarms them. And how are they supposed to protect themselves from someone like that? Okay, let's listen to a little bit more. I kind of get the gist of it.
There's a heavy police presence. Specialist officers are carrying out forensic investigations in this murder inquiry.
Yeah, notice how they're quick to say murder inquiry. They didn't say terrorist yet. Let's see. Turn off my mouse. There it goes.
Piecing together exactly how one of the country's most well-known politicians died.
Gee, how that could have happened? I don't know, like disarming your citizens for one. They can't protect themselves. And they're really going to wait for the state police to show up? You call the state police and they'll just take forever to show up. She had like a gun or some kind of taser or something or a mace. She could have protected herself. But no, they disarm the citizens and then they're going to wait for the state police to do their job and they just show up too late. And your tax dollars pay for these incompetent.
Helena Wilkinson, BBC News.
Our UK correspondent Daniel Sanford is here with me. Daniel,
All right, that's enough of this correspondent stuff. Let's see, what was this? This was 3 days ago. Tom MacArthur. Okay. What has happened? Let's see if it mentions anything. Okay, what does it say? Wednesday, July 8th, my birthday. CCTV footage appears to show a man dressed in a white shirt and shorts getting into a red vehicle outside his house in Rotherham, with what it looks like a long object protruding from his pocket. Never mind. Anne Widdecombe appears on Talk TV from her home in Haytor, a village in Dartmoor, to speak about her Party Reform UK's leader, Nigel Farage. So at 12:19, a researcher from Channel 5 reportedly speaks to Widdecombe, looking to set up a video statement. Her last message received 12:19. Police believe this is the time that Widdecombe was attacked. Channel 5 researcher messaged again, according to ITV reports, asking Widdecombe to join Zoom link before the interview, but she does not reply. Okay, so where does it say it was a terrorist attack? Did they change that? Yeah, targeted. Oh, here's where. Okay, yeah, that's where it said. Former MP and MEP Anne Widdecombe was killed in a targeted attack. Counterterrorism police leading the investigation into her alleged murder have said. So it was, but they said it was a murder very quick. They didn't just wait for for an investigation. Now the investigation, now they changed it to a targeted terrorist attack. Okay, we know all this. We know the failure. Okay. So before we get into the other reports, let me give my preamble here, what the philosophy I'm behind my analysis always. I like to kind of give my philosophy. I don't want to give like a lecture, but just kind of give you the gist of it. So like my core philosophy, radical objectivism. So whenever I do news stories, I always use radical objectivism, anarcho-capitalism, and agorism as my three-pronged, three-lens approach to analyzing these stories. So that's why I say this is a state failure, as the OP says. So reality is objective, reason is the sole means of knowledge, rational self-interest is moral, initiation of force is evil, individual rights to life, liberty, property are absolute, government is a necessary. Well, I don't agree with this. So I just cut this out. Government is not necessary evil. We don't need a night watchman state, as this proves it. So that's why I'm radical objectivist, because I don't believe in a night watchman state. And government existence is illegitimate. It violates the rights. Widdecombe's faith-driven politics clashes here, right? Because she's the altruist, religious duty, and state enforcement of traditional values, subordinate reason to mysticism and collectivist coercion. Okay, that's radical objective. That's where I'm coming from here. And then Ancap, anarcho-capitalism, and this is the thing, no state has a monopoly on force, law, security. So if she had private security, or she had means to protect herself, she'd probably still be alive. But since the state has a monopoly on force and the state police, you have to wait for them. Yeah, they're incompetent. They're not going to show up in time. All services, protection, arbitration, defense via voluntary markets, right? That's the key. Private defense agencies, PDAs, insurance, reputation. Aggression, initiation of force or fraud is the sole crime. The state is the ultimate aggressor via taxation, regulation, monopoly, justice. Okay. Now we get to the third prong, agorism. As you know, it's conquered Samuel Edward Konkin. Counter-economics. So building parallel voluntary markets to starve the state. Of course, we don't need the state. Withdrawal consent via black and gray markets, mutual aid, entrepreneurship, outside state control, revolution through evasion, not violence or voting. New libertarian focus on consent, not aggression. Okay, so we saw this already. And this is the updated news, I guess. They changed it. They said it was murder. Wasn't this the update? Investigation moving at light speed. That's 5 days ago. Does the obituary. Rest in peace. No, thank you. Okay. So I thought pretty sure that I'll get rid of this, and let's watch that. Okay, let's see what we got here.
It's been a fast-paced investigation which really has developed throughout today. You can see behind me that the police remain outside Anne Widdecombe's property. There is a significant police.
You know, the same police that told that Henry Hawk guy that no one stabbed you? You weren't stabbed? That the same police? You're going to trust them?
Presence in the last couple of minutes. I saw through the cordon there a forensic van with forensic work continuing inside. As I say, it has developed quickly throughout the day. We started this morning, of course, learning the sad news of the death of Anne Widdecombe, and tributes pouring in from across the political and entertainment spectrum throughout the day. It was around about 3 o'clock that we got wind here at Sky News that there was to be a press conference this afternoon. Very little detail initially revealed by Devon and Cornwall Police as to exactly what that was about. That was due to take place at 4:30, and as you'll know, that was delayed by well over an hour. It's our understanding that during that time, the information from the town of Newton Abbot, which is only around 10 or so miles away from here, where the arrest was made of the suspect in this murder investigation was made, and I think that is in part...
They were still saying murder investigation at that point. They haven't changed it.
Jude, that is in part the reason for the delay in that press conference that we just heard from there from Devon and Cornwall Police. As you can see behind me at the moment, police continuing to have the tape up here, and this is going to be clearly here for some time as that investigation work continues, that forensic investigation work continues. You can just about...
Ooh, the government doing stuff. Hey, okay. So let me just kind of cut in here real quick. So let's kind of steelman some of Widdecombe's arguments here. She exemplified like partial virtues, unwavering commitment to her perceived values, independence in hostile media and political environment, productivity, long career media presence, but she failed the test of reason. Her position relied on religious faith over objective reality. So, like, for example, abortion is absolute moral wrong versus theology, not purely rational individual rights from conception. Death penalty as state retribution rather than objective justice. She supported, they're all statists, she supported state power to enforce her code. So how can you advocate for independence and then you want the state to enforce a code? Yeah, to force. So this would make her a statist enemy of the mind's sovereignty. So what her death highlights is vulnerability in the rights violating system. Right. So the state police failed to protect her life. Prime objective value right there. Yet the system claims a monopoly on response, like they're showing here. But rational egoism demands securing one's life through reason and voluntary means, not petitioning the collective. So Ancap steelman. Now we kind of covered the objective steelman. Let's do Ancap steelman. The argument there. So from an Ancap perspective, this here is an example of the state's justice monopoly, and it failed spectacularly. So like this is an example of rural home invasion, murder, despite taxes funding the police. Now, there's private alternatives like armed security, neighborhood PDAs, insurance contracts with rapid response would incentivize better protection, wouldn't it? Via competition, profit and loss. So this is kind of ironic because Widdecombe's pro-state conservatism, even Reform UK's border and justice rhetoric, perpetuated the system that left her exposed. That's the irony. So this murder violates the non-aggression principle, of course, restitution via private arbitration. So, like, for example, the killer's labor assets to victims, a state issuer. Trump's state prisons or spectacle. So her advocacy for bigger, stronger government, immigration control, traditional enforcement, what did that ignore? It ignored all the states that create dependency and erode self-defense norms. That's basically what is happening here. That's the commentary I'm providing on this story here through Ancap lens. I'm steelman the argument here. Now to continue further, the Agorist steelman. So Widdecombe, she operated within these political means, like for example, voting, office, party machinery. So all that does is just legitimize the state she criticizes on specifics. Kind of ironic. True liberation comes from counter-economic withdrawal, right? So Agorists build voluntary communities. Let me know in the comment section below if you agree or not, or if you have alternatives. Private arbitration, like, crypto black markets is bypassing taxes and regulations. Okay, we know that. So for her, death here underscores state failure to deliver security. It monopolizes. So Agorists respond. We respond by expanding parallel institutions like mutual defense pacts, reputation economies, rather than mourning lost public servants. And what political figures do, they distract from building exit ramps. You want to build those exit ramps. You want to be distracted by this. This is just, I just said that when I was listening to this other report, like, hey, look at the states doing stuff. Isn't it great? No, it's just the failed state. That's all that is. Now, let's continue watching a little bit. And
see some of the windows of Anne Widdecombe's home behind me open here, and of course officers going in and out. I think it's...
Look at the state doing stuff. They're such heroes. You're looking at your tax dollars hard at work.
Probably just worth at this point tonight taking a step back and really recapping how all of this unfolded over the last 24 hours.
How did it unfold? So, communist terrorist, right? I don't think they mentioned in this report.
Also, because actually this was yesterday that police were called by ambulance services yesterday morning, and that is when officers found the 78-year-old former Conservative minister dead in her home. She had suffered serious injuries, and that is then, of course, it was 24 hours or so later that information was released to the public. It is then, of course, when we learned this afternoon that this had become a murder investigation. And in that police press conference, confirming, as I said, that a 26-year-old male from the market town of Newton Abbot, really the sort of large...
Newton Abbot, isn't that like 300 miles from... Okay. So this thing is just absolute failure of the state. So like, instead of just campaigning for reform UK immigration policies, Agorist, we would facilitate voluntary private border mechanisms. You could privatize it or just abolish the welfare state. I've done videos on that. So like property owners, associations, insurance-rated security firms, and counter-economic migration, e.g. gray market labor bypassing welfare state controls. So post-death, the post-death now, Agorist networks could offer private investigation restitution a fuck of a lot faster than these guys. I mean, look at PayPal Resolution Center. They can solve this in like 3 days. Or you can resolve it even faster for like mutual aid funds. That'll work for victims' families without a state bureaucracy. And this is just going to go on. It's going to drag on. And there'll be no resolution for this for like months, maybe next year or something, if this guy's even going to go to jail. So families without the state bureaucracy. So example here, like historical Agorist black markets, like during prohibitions, evaded state violence more effectively than lobbying. All right. Let's continue on.
Large town closest to Dartmoor here, was arrested, a white British national arrested on suspicion of murder. We heard.
Yeah, they sure went to that white British national really quick. They really mentioned his skin tone, white. Whereas the Henry Hawks murder, they didn't really mention his particular ethnicity at first. He was murdered by a mostly peaceful knife.
Our colleagues from Sky News there asking police whether or not they believe this investigation, this murder may well have been politically motivated. No information, police say, at the moment, which leads them to believe that it was politically motivated. We do know that Devon and Cornwall police at some stage consulted their counterparts within the counter-terrorism.
How long that took, too. I mean, we figured that out when they were posting the story on Twitter. We figured that out a lot faster than the police did. We knew something was up, that was a terrorist attack. Just looking at the evidence.
Operation, but confirmed that at the moment this is not being treated as terrorism. There was an appeal, of course, at the start of today for CCTV, a portal indeed.
What?
There was an appeal, of course, at the start of today for terrorism. This is not being treated as terrorism.
It's not being treated as terrorism. It is now.
There was an appeal, of course, at the start of today for the moment this is not being treated as terrorism. Some stage consulted their counterparts within the counter-terrorism operation, but confirmed that at the moment this is not being treated as terrorism. There was an appeal, of course, at the start of today for CCTV, a portal indeed set up for people to search and send any information they had. This is a rural area.
Oh, thanks, State Police. Well, you gave us a little breadcrumbs there. We can look at it ourselves. Thanks for the little breadcrumbs.
We're only a mile or so away from Haytor, the sort of focal point of the national park here in Dartmoor. There are just a handful of houses on this very rural lane here where Anne lived. So there wouldn't have been many people, of course, who were around to witness what unfolded. But, of course, it would have been unusual to see anything out of the ordinary. So they put that...
Be unusual to see anything out of the ordinary. You just said there's nobody around. So I guess Widdecombe, she was anti-abortion. She had an anti-abortion stance. So she as she defended life by critiqued as initiating force via state bans on rational individuals' choices, body as property. See, objectivists, though, not radical objectivists, but like closed objectivists, prioritize the woman's right to her life, property, mind, body, and money. On her murder, though, objectivist justice requires identifying the aggressor via recent evidence, not this state ritual that we're seeing here. So, like, for example, Ayn Rand's heroes like Rourke and Galt reject sacrificial politics. That's what this is. Widdecombe's public service ethic smacks of under duty to the collective. Yeah, still a collective. Now, see, if you had like private cities, or they call like seasteads with contractual law, they will allow residents to opt into strict social codes. Yeah, wouldn't that be better if they had that here in this little residency here, or not, without national imposition? So Widdecombe's pro-death penalty. Ancaps prefer restitution insurance over state execution. Risk of error. There's always a risk of error. So her home in Ancap, she'd have a contract with the PDA, for example, for 24/7 monitoring, rapid armed response, profit-driven with SLAs, unlike unresponsive state cops like here. I've been stabbed. I don't think you have, mate. So an example, we have historical examples like private policing, Pinkertons, medieval merchant guilds, and they handle security without monopoly failures. Yep. Iceland is a good example of, very good example of how low the crime rate was. Hey, I know there's some dead air out there, but if Hassan Piker can sit there and pick his nose for 2 minutes in dead air. Well, at least I can sit there with dead air for a few seconds. So they're not treating it as terrorism, but now they're treating it as terrorism.
And then it was only a matter of hours later, clearly fast-paced developments by officers.
Oh, fast-paced developments.
Miles away, which led to that arrest, and it has had an impact locally. We've only been here for sort of 20 minutes.
They really like to fucking rub it in, don't they? How great they are. Look at your tax. See, you need us. Without us, you'd have chaos. Aren't you glad this is... Japan does the same propaganda. They're doing the same propaganda kind of stuff with the bear attacks. They keep showing these documentaries, how great the police are doing to stop these bear attacks, when in fact it was the politicians who put those anti-hunting laws 30 years ago, which caused the bear population to go up, and it resulted in collateral damage, attacks, and deaths. But now look at the police. Aren't they great? They're saving us. Here's bear alert. Here's what to do if you see a bear. It's just more state theater. Just want to try to prove that, hey, your taxes are well spent. It's like this shit, too.
Also, but speaking to some of the people in properties, the handful of properties that face onto Anne Widdecombe's home here, they have spoken of their shock, saying how shocking it is today.
Yeah. Shocking. Okay, is this investigation is moving at warp speed? Police say the investigation into the suspect murder is moving at significant... What is... How do you quantify that anyway? Significant pace. How do you... What, like at a snail's significant pace? I mean, that depends on what you're talking about. Right. But they brag again, you know. A major incident portal has been set up, and they're urging people to come... Fuck off. Really, fuck off. Fuck the state.
And days. We know she made her last, and the ambulance services.
But like this woman even cares about... You think this woman gives a shit about some white woman dying? Probably not. She probably secretly, yeah. Oh, there was a tweet, or it's someone celebrated the death. It's awful. Okay, yeah, but it's moving at warp speed. It's amazing how fast the state. Look, comments are turned off. What's this? Trump. The U.S. president alleges China committed 2025. Well, they do have evidence for that. But anyway, I don't want to get into that. That might be next week's topic. Okay, I don't want to hear this anymore. Okay, so let's read this, and I'll give you some more of my commentary. Let's see. Anne Widdecombe, former Tory minister and reform Widdecombe, dies age 78. Prominent Eurosceptic and social conservative, described as a force of nature by Farage and formidable by Bandinock. Okay, she's a force of nature. She's a Eurosceptic. Oh, that sounds like a disease or something. Describe her as that. Let's see. Served MP, her representatives. Yeah, we heard of Anne was a valued patron of many causes, I'm sure. Widdecombe held ministerial positions, and they were talking more of the status stuff. Her management portrayed her political views as a result of what she saw as strong Christian values and commitment to public service. Altruism, that's a great one. Yeah. Paying tribute to her, Farage described her as a force of nature. She'd come to London, but she's a Eurosceptic. A consummate professional and okay, just more testimonials. We have a small, I don't care, I'm not donating to you, right? Okay, so we heard enough of this, we read this, and this is an obituary. So let's read a little bit of this, and I'll give my commentary. So Anne Widdecombe was an extraordinary woman, without doubt, the best known, most outstanding female politician in British since Margaret Thatcher. I don't think it's on that scale. I think Margaret Thatcher was better. Anne spent many years in the Conservative Party. Then in 2019, she joined us. in the Brexit party. Oh, she's a Eurosceptic. We won the European elections. That was an outstanding colleague in the European Parliament. Beyond that, she became a loyal member alongside us, all in Reform UK, and reached, of course, far beyond politics through Strictly Come Dancing, Big Brother, and her theater tours. She wasn't just a politician, she became a celebrity. She stood up for and fought what she believed in, devout Christian, standing on stage. And Rant, she understood that it's a team game. We're all in this fight together. Who's we? That sounds like more collectivist jargon to me. So as you can see here, Widdecombe represents principled statism. Consistent within her frame, but incoherent from these lenses. She fought cultural decay via politics, the gun, ignoring that the state is the biggest looter and enforcer. Yeah, now you can ignore that. Her violent debt, presumptive aggression, right, violates the primacy of self-defense and voluntary order. So the states promise protection while disarming the normies, extracting wealth and failing delivery. Yep. Great. For Widdecombe. Okay. Objectivism demands rational egoists build independent lives. Ancap Agorism opportunizes it via market. So this tragedy isn't just one death, but the perpetuation of a system where individuals outsource their most fundamental right, self-preservation, to predators and badges. Okay, let's read a little bit more. Rest in peace, Anne, remarkable principled woman. Depending on what principles. Because if she former statism, then she would she be against the non-aggression principle? It was a truly dreadful way to die and a terrible reflection of modern Britain. Okay, we need more Widdecombes more than ever. Well, okay, so now I'm going to come up to the segment here, boys and girls. I'm going to preempt criticisms about her, okay? I've been critical of this status, and it's too bad that that's terrible how she died by a communist terrorist. That's awful. You shouldn't celebrate that. But now, since I've been criticizing her statism and her contradiction to my principles and to the principles of radical objectivists and agorists and Ancap, now I'm going to go and preempt the criticisms now, okay? So you're going to say, aren't you going to say, let me get my coffee before I get into it. I got to do the voice right. Okay, let's do the voice. Let's do the voice. Let's do the voices. So I always like to do this funny voice, this screechy voice when I'm quoting the criticisms, okay? So preempting criticisms. Heartless to philosophize a death. Not heartless. Because reality is objective. Emotions follow reason. So ignoring principles dishonors the victim's right to life by evading root causes. State monopoly failure. Sentimentality enables more victims. So there's my response to heartless to philosophize a death. Now go to criticism number 2. These philosophies ignored real-world crime and chaos. Steelman counters with evidence of state failures. Rising UK crime stats, police response times, wrongful convictions. Mark incentives, reputation, profit competition, outperform monopoly. Public choice theory, officials maximize budgets, power not safety. And we have historical counterexamples, medieval Iceland, private law in merchant towns, modern private security outperforming public in many metrics. That's my response to these philosophies ignore real-world crime and chaos. Okay, criticism, what am I criticism up to? Number 3, Widdecombe did good via politics, Brexit, pro-life. partial credit for reducing some coercion. Okay, I give her that. Brexit skepticism of EU superstate. But its ends don't justify political means. Agorists achieve freer trade, movement via counter-economics without legitimizing parliaments. Objectivism rejects faith-based good. There. Now I'm going to preempt criticism number 4. Your lenses are utopian edge cases. They're not utopian. Gradual via agorist buildup. Real examples like crypto, agorist money, private arbitration, e.g. international commerce, homeowner associations, armed self-defense, reducing victimization where permitted. Critics evade by demanding perfection while defending demonstrably flawed monopoly. Okay, preempting criticism number 5. Ignores her personal virtues. Okay, consistency to flawed premises isn't virtue. Objectivism values rational integration. Her output, media service, was productive, but directed at expanding, enforcing state power. So there, I answered all the critics what you probably say. I did 5 of them. So, what do you think in the chat below? Let me know your thoughts. I mean, look, man, I'm just sitting here typing this philosophy crap while the world's burning, right? This classic keyboard warrior move. Yeah, I'm tough, aren't I? I roast myself daily for not fully living the agorist life. Yeah. So I'm still navigating some state paperwork, right? Not running a full counter-economic op in the woods. Let me know in the comment section below. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? I don't care if you give me negative or positive feedback, whatever. Widdecombe at least charged into the arena. I mostly rant, but that's the point. No one is pure. Her path was politics. Mine's is building exit. Both expose the same rot. Okay, so let's wrap it up here. I'm going to finish up with my principal takeaway. So core truth here, your life is your own highest value. No politician, party, or cop owns your defense. Radical objectivism says reason is self-interest, demand you secure it. Ancap says markets provide better PDAs and arbitration than the UK's farce. Agorism says starve the beast. Trade voluntarily, ensure privately, defend mutually, evade where you must. Widdecombe's death screams, stop outsourcing rights. The political means failed her. The economic means remain open. So build the parallel systems now. Form or join mutual defense groups. Support gray market tech privacy tools. Opt out of welfare dependency. Push restitution over prisons. Read Konkin, man. Rant, Rothbard, then act. Drop your counter-economic wins in the chat, please. Private security setups, black market hacks, let me know. Local agorist networks, let me know. What's one step you're taking this week to reclaim your sovereignty? Hit the like if this cuts through the noise. Sub for more unfiltered philosophy. Let's build the exit, not beg for better rulers. Stay rational. And with that, we conclude today's stream, my reaction stream to Ed Widdecombe's death. I hope you enjoyed today's stream. Let me know in the comment section below. And what are you doing as an agorist or Ancap, whatever? Let me know. All right. So that's it for today's rant live stream reaction. We'll see you tomorrow for another daily roast. Until then, peace out and starve the beast.